On September 12th, an everyday Friday morning turned into my longest awakening yet. Over 3 blissful hours of what I can only describe as temporary enlightenment. And it didn't happen while meditating on a mountain. It happened while sitting on my couch eating breakfast. In this video, I'll share what the state felt like, why I think it faded, how to get back in, and how you can recognize all the everyday awakenings in your life. Hi there, I'm Anne-Katrin and I'm occasionally awake. I'm here to help you inspire your awakenings, heal yourself, and reawaken your life. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. First, if you're new to my channel, let me say that I distinguish 4 different types of awakenings. There are awakenings to the ego self, to the conscious self, and awakenings to the matrix and to now experience. Knowledge awakenings are amazing. They're also referred to as downloads, channelings, divine epiphanies, unexpected aha moments. They're truly magical, but they're not rare. At least not to me. I personally have knowledge awakenings almost every single day now. Awakenings to now experience, however, they hit different. I've experienced a handful of those, and every single one of them lasted for several minutes. That felt like an eternity of bliss and peace and calm. Just the most amazing feeling. The highest frequency. This awakening, however, lasted several hours, and it came completely unexpected. So now I'm going to tell you everything about my most recent non-dual experience, how to spot everyday enlightenment, how to return to that state, and what all of this means for you. Being awake. First thing I want to say is this. Having an awakening doesn't mean waking up. It means being awake, experiencing the awake state from within. At any point in time, we are either awake or we are not. I'm used to being seated in one spot while having an awakening to now experience, but this awakening experience was different in every sense of the word. I was moving, I was preparing breakfast, I was sitting on the couch, I was getting up. I wrote down some thoughts in my notebook, all while being in the awake state. How did I even know I was awake? So when you are awake, you just know. It's a different frequency and it's a different mental emotional state. A state in which the ego mind dissolves and no longer provides a frame for reality. A state where there is no attachment, no agenda, no logistics, no judgment, no future, and no past. No thing. It feels like being in another realm while still seeing the same 3D reality before your eyes. So while the outside world obviously isn't changing in the moment you are suddenly being awake, the inside shift is such a radical disruption. It's a difference between day and night. For comparison, imagine that you're in the middle of your workday and then suddenly a finger snips and you find yourself standing on a beach. All by yourself in the quiet, waves crashing against the shore, warm breeze, sand between your toes, perfect peace. It was that kind of shift. Just imagine feeling the beach in your heart instead of seeing it and still perceiving the same 3D work environment with your eyes. I suddenly found myself in the middle of an invisible cocoon, perfectly protected. Any thought that came was benevolent and loving. Worries were non-existent. They wouldn't have found traction in a mind that was free of story. It was a deeply saturated experience of wholeness. Awake integration. This awakening was also the first time that I experienced nervous system activation while maintaining the awake state. I didn't even know that was possible before, but actually it makes perfect sense. Why? Because, listen up, this is one of the most important downloads I received this year. The high frequency of peace, bliss, love, and connection contains our individual experience of its lack. That is why most of us avoid what we say we want, because the desire is charged with the unprocessed emotional load of its opposite. And that's why what you long for in this life and what you are most scared of are often very close. So what happened for me in that experience was that my body remembered the absence in the experience of perfect presence. Halfway into the awake state, I felt inspired to practice some advanced hands-on energy work. And that's what started the nervous system activation. So while being in an awake state, I went through several waves of crying and processing and integrating. It was the perfect alchemy. This was just the most gentle form of integration because it meant that an old emotional charge was released into the container of my conscious loving presence. Listen, in less woo-woo terms, this simply means feeling all the feels, like the rush of a current from a witnessing perspective without letting the current overflow the shoreline. And little side note, we can learn to do that without any awakening to our experience. I refer to that process as conscious containment. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about that moving forward because I've come to understand that that's one of the key components of holistic trauma healing and integration. And also, in very humble terms, the basis of emotional maturity. And this experience has given me a new understanding of people we consider enlightened, such as Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie, who say that negative, low-frequency emotions like grief and anger might still arise, but that from within the awake state, that's not the language they use, but they essentially say they still can experience these emotions. And the difference is how they relate to these emotions. How, for example, they let these emotions move through them without any resistance, just allowing what is to be there. And now I know what it feels like to hold both realities at the same time, to hold the ambiguity of that experience. After the awake state. After more than 3 hours, the awake state suddenly slipped between my fingers. It's like I felt it dissolve and then it was gone. How I noticed, you might wonder, and it's hard to put words to it. Let me say that I slipped back into my personal version of normal. I slipped back into my dominant state, into the dominant feeling of being me. I've come to like and enjoy that state. 2 years ago, I could not have said that. So I am grateful to be able to say that now. But still, it felt like I had been pushed out of a car mid-drive at high speed. Not for the force, but for the intense feeling of separation that followed. It felt like I was separated again. No more collective, no more us, no more cocoon, no more soothing. Just me, an ego, a singular perspective perceiving its world. For a while that day, I was craving to get back into the feeling of the arms, the cocoon, the soothing nest, that state of perfect connection and bliss and peace. In fact, what I got instead was a headache. 3 hours enlightened, headache for the rest of the day. Miserable human. That was very humbling, let me tell you. That was so freaking humbling. I'm so glad you're here right now. So if you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications to become occasionally awake with me. The architecture of awakening. I kept contemplating why I had fallen out of the state. Like if there had been any initiator to me leaving the awake state. As it turned out, there had been one, but I did not notice myself. So I got curious, I went and turned to my favorite channeling practice called Letters from the Universe. I have a whole video about that practice, you can watch it here if you're interested. Instead of using my regular prompt to channel messages, I specifically addressed the awakening. And I've decided to share the answer with you. And obviously I'm sharing the answer with you because it contains golden information about the architecture of awakenings to our experience. So you don't want to miss this answer. Here's what I channeled. What you refer to as the awake state was a rather natural soul state. Was it an awakening to the human mind? Yes. Was it an awakening to us according to our non-human unconceptional terms? No. But the importance of the term for educational purposes remains. Here's what we want you to know. It is the normal state in which you came. Anything else is poor translation. You did not fall out of the awakening, the special occurrence. You fell out of the flow of the most natural state to be in, the perception of truth. You tainted your glasses with flawed perception. Most of you do it, and yet to us, that is the occurrence worth mentioning. The right question for you to ponder is not how to get back to exclusivity, but how to get back into your nature. See, you understand the words, but you don't feel them yet. Because in simple terms, your soul's normal is still special to your mind. What happened is that you went back into separation from you. Allow you to be. Be. And you are back in the middle of the current, your natural flow. Not you get back in. You are back in. No space, no time, no process. It's now or never, in every now. That's the answer I received. And it was stunningly precise because it also included the very exact reason for why I had split back into separation, into my egoic mind earlier that day. Without getting into the details here, let me say that it turned out to be the specific creative impulses that I got towards the end of the awakening experience inside the awake state that triggered an automated reaction of fear and avoidance in my system. And that caused me to fall out of the awake state and back into the illusion of separation. To break this down, an awakening to now experience is not a special occurrence. It is our nature underneath the conditioning. It is the being underneath the mind, the state that we all came from and that is equally accessible to every single one of us. It's not meant to be a special occurrence, but the pure, full, inspired, creative expression of me, of you, of all of us. And the degree to which you are not awake is the degree to which you experience the illusion of separation from self. And not only do I mean separation in spiritual terms, I also mean it in psychological and developmental terms. I'm talking the same separation here that stems from early experiences of trauma, of unworthiness, of needs unmet, of love denied. And that's also where shadow integration and awakenings meet. Because ultimately, you gotta dissolve the internalized, the conditioned separation, the special occurrence of human imperfection in order to access the naturally awake state underneath. And until your next awakening, please know that anytime you listen to your intuition, anytime you receive a creative impulse and choose to follow it, anytime you receive a download, that veil to the awake state becomes so thin, it almost disappears, it fades. Right in these moments, you can feel that awake state, that highest experience of peace and bliss glimmer through the fabric of your conditioned mind. Underneath that beautiful, busy mind of yours, you already are awake. Got any occasional awakenings yet? Now I'd like to hear from you, so let me know in the comments below about your experience with non-dual awakenings to the now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. This video is related to the awakening to now experience. I don't get to say that very often. And if you want more insights on the 4 different types of awakenings and how to experience them in your life occasionally, then visit me at occasionallyawake.com to inspire your awakenings. Because they're for everyone. Bye.